Earth debate live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a coffee, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Neil, Adam, Sensual, Refracted, and a whole bunch of people in the Flat Earth Debate Discord server. So, welcome one and all.
Good morning.
Yay.
Morning. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you may be. So if you're a member of Nathan Oakley 1980, you will be receiving a treat in the pre-show as we went into politics, mainly because there was nobody in any of the other servers. So I went in, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm in the best of health today. Both of my kids have been sick for the last week, and then as they've got better, my wife got ill, and now I'm feeling it. It's coming, I know it. I've got a high temperature, although I don't feel terrible, but I know I've got a fever coming, so I'm not going to have a massively long show today, but to make up for it, there is an added bonus of politics in the pre-show, so check that out if you're a member. In the meantime, any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge? That's a horizon formerly known as Earth curvature.
No.
Is the horizon horizontal?
Is the horizon horizontal? Yes.
Then no.
What's something we haven't asked this week? Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Earth sonograms.
P waves and S
You're
waves.
gonna need evidence of a curve for that, mate. A globe, and there is none. Any evidence of globe Earth is actually proving a flat Earth. And they've got no shame in actually telling you that.
Reminds
I
me,
would dig outside something, but I'm not going to.
Did we figure that out for the book, John? I can't even remember what we've done now.
Yeah.
Did we get enough citations? Were you around when we were doing that chapter? I'm sure you were.
Yeah, I got the 3 citations, and two of them acknowledged the flat plane but said Earth wasn't flat, and the third one just stated that it was a flat plane.
Good. That's what I was hoping for. Yeah, that's right. 2 explicitly saying, look, we have to, measure it flat and that, but Earth ain't flat. And the other one was like, we measure Earth flat for this. This is seismology, by the way. So during the book writing process, we wanted to find decent citations, and for the most part, I'm more content to just junk a whole chunk of chapter than have it not be well cited. And that's not because it's not originally written and perfectly satisfactory as it was, past tense. The rest of the book's been brought up by the bootstraps and is a lot higher standards. So there's various different bits that are going to get hacked out. There was another bit that I was talking about with Flatsy the other day. So there's a section in the book, I think it might be along the same vein, molten iron core related, which is to say that stays because it's all roads lead to a flat Earth, right? So if you can allude to the way that you're measuring the Earth with seismology, you can show how Earth's being measured as a flat plane. Great. But then you get into pictures of Thea, and in the story of the development of a molten iron core in the first instance, and it's a housekeeping question, it's relevant. But me going on to describe how it's fear-based mind control to have people presented with this image of Thea smashing into Earth at a glancing blow, a planetary destroyer, it's happened before, all that kind of stuff. Relevant, true, but not pertinent in a book that's being called a reference book. So there's a good chance, now I've slept on it a couple of nights, that there's a huge chunk of chapter that's just going to be washed down the drain, because I don't think it's relevant. Unless somebody talks me out of it, Originally, I thought it might be the case that me saying I want it and two people saying they didn't and one other agreeing with me would mean that Flatsy had the casting vote. But in reality, I think we'll probably end up getting rid of it. But
What?
it's a reference book.
Why?
Because it's not relevant.
No. Yeah, but we
What are you
discussed
getting
it
rid
so
of
many
again?
times. Hold on, we discussed it so many times on Flat Earth Debate.
Let me just tell John, there's a whole section where I'm referencing a picture that we've dug out where it's obviously a CGI rendering and NASA's disclaimer is on the bottom left of it, right? But it's in a story about Thea smashing into Earth. Now, off the back of that picture, I'm waffling into fear-based mind control. That's what the paragraph's about. And there's quotes from things like Armageddon, just to put it into slightly worse context, given it's a reference book. Now I'm saying it out loud. I definitely want to get rid of this. But there's, quotes from, I think he's called Harry Truman, played by Billy Bob Thornton in either event, and he's talking to the whole board of directors in this regard, whoever the hell they are, about what the asteroid on its way to Earth from space, a sky vacuum that's debunked by the second law of thermodynamics, how it's going to be a global killer. Well, I'm sort of expanding out on the picture of Thea with this notion of fear-based mind control, and then dovetailing that in with a quote from Armageddon from a fictional character called Harry Truman. The more I talk about it, the more I'll definitely get rid of all of this. It's just not right in there. It's all in red text at the moment, so that when we read through it on the final read through, we can decide whether or not to keep it. I've made my decision already. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that in the book which just gets chunked because it's just not good enough. The standard's gone up.
Huey wouldn't even read it.
Yeah, Huey was one of the two that was like, get rid of this. There's been a lot of the book. It's heartbreaking. Go on, John.
It's an appeal to a grand conspiracy. You don't need that.
No, I agree.
Everybody's working against you. It doesn't really sell well. It's fallacious.
Yeah, all roads lead to a flat Earth, and that does require measurements at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, that's predominantly what the book's about, and that's the title of the book. But there's been huge swathes of book that I wrote with 10th and the publisher that got to the final draft stage that have just been junked. It's just been cut out and reduced to nothing in the overall final cut of the book. That's just how it goes. It just means that there is a semblance of the story that I've told originally in this reference book, so it makes it a bit easier to read when it's very citation heavy and explanation heavy in terms of what each housekeeping question means specifically, as that's what we're working on at the moment. But I can talk about the book in these terms now because it's mostly done, so I can give the audience a better idea of what the book is going to be. Whereas previously, when it's all in the air, you don't know what to tell the audience. You're like, I don't know if that bit's going to get hacked out, but it gives you a flavour when I tell you what's not going to be in it, right?
Well, I tell you, the bibliography is going to be half the book.
Yeah, I said that on a show a couple of days ago. Exactly, a good chunk, I don't know about half the book, but a good third of the book will be glossary. And there'll be a lexicon for the language that we speak as well. There'll be descriptions of words like glober, if we're using that term. I would hope that we can get rid of all of that with Flatsy's assistance. Like, put it into plain English instead of having vernacular that we have to explain in a lexicon at the back of the book. Fine for people who know, but I want to make it more universally acceptable with clear English. Yeah. Hello. So spinning balls, space monkeys, things like that need to be removed. Go on, Eli.
What's interesting about the book is either it gets heavily scrutinized for misinformation or it doesn't get scrutinized at all.
Okay. Very black and white way of looking at it.
No, think about it. Think about it. Out of all of the referenceable flat earthers out there, when it comes to the body of work that FED is putting forth, the information that we're going to have in this book, and no one picks it apart to speak about what's incorrect, that is going to be something that we can point to forever. Interesting. You talk about TFE. Interesting. You talk about the Netflix documentary. Interesting that you talk about this, that, and the third. Hey, here's what we represent. Here's this book. You have anything to say about this? What's incorrect about it?
Nothing. There won't be anything
Nothing.
incorrect in it at all.
Excellent.
I love it.
Well, just as a quick question, have you all got anything about radar or compasses? Are they included in any of the chapters?
No, not really. Why?
Oh, well, I mean, they both require a plane of reference.
Okay. I mean, we've got a chapter to write, though. You appreciate we're going to be writing a flights chapter? It's the only chapter that wasn't written. It's become a housekeeping question. I may as well ask it. Any evidence that you can have pitch data on a globe?
If you're going to require pitch data, it will require a horizontal plane of reference. Simple as that. You can't acquire it without that.
But within that chapter, things like radar will become, more useful or relevant to be detailed. But that's a really easy chapter because it hasn't got my, and then mine and 10th, and then mine and 10th, and the publisher to deal with in terms of what was already written. There isn't anything, right? That's happened since the book's been written. It's been over a year in the writing. So because it's taken such a long time, there's been literally a new housekeeping question introduced. So it's an addition, which is good in a way. It'd be horrible if it got published and then there was a new housekeeping question immediately after the book came out. Hey, Brian. Seen any shadows?
Hey, Nathan. Hey, everyone.
Where them shadows be then, Brian?
Oh, yeah. There's definitely some carry on going on, that's for sure. I don't know what's going on with all that. I just know that there's a shadow.
The shadows are weird, man. I'm with you, Brian. Fuck that. Excuse me. It's just too early. They're weird, man. What?
Brian said there's some carry on. That might not be a well-known American reference, but here in Britain, there was films in the 60s and 70s called the Carry On movies. So when Brian says there's some sort of carry on, I kind of picture him as some cheeky scamp leprechaun-looking Irishman dancing around looking for shadows. Oh, where those shadows be? That sort of carry on.
Yeah, well, when we use the term carry on here, it's like it kind of means like that there's a lot of malarkey going on, a lot of nonsense, and there's not enough what's the word?
Yeah, I know, malarkey for the Americans, right? Shenanigans.
Shenanigans, exactly. There's shenanigans. Carry on means shenanigans. Exactly. That's the word I was looking for. Shenanigans.
There's definitely some shenanigans going on.
We use that here too. We use shenanigans all the time here too. Yeah.
It's in South Park, isn't it? When they call someone on it, when someone's basically being a cheating, conning scumbag, they call shenanigans on them. Shenanigans.
Yeah. Go on, John. Sorry.
I don't get this inside joke. What does it have to do with shadows?
There's a shadow that's not shown in any part of the time-lapse footage within any of the TFE stuff. There's particular shadow from the mountain that's not shown. And I'm hearing I've heard every kind of excuse as to why it's not there. And I had this guy called Petey make a video trying to show me how the people just can't see it and why they can't see it. But he had to use deception within his video. So, I mean, I'm okay if there's a good reason why you can't see the shadow, but I can't take nonsense and I can't take deception. If you have a valid reason, then you won't need deception. You're not going to way. There's a shadow that should be there that's not. It's that simple. Where's the shadow? And there's also contradiction going on there as well. Where there's, when they first got there, I may as well tell you this part. When they first got there, one of the first things that Jaron Campanella said was that they couldn't do the observation from the base camp where all the tents and all that are, because for 2 to 3 hours of the 24-hour period, the sun supposedly is blocked by Mount Rossman, right? The mountain. So it goes behind the mountain and they can't see the sun from that position. So they had to move to a different camp, right? I call it the observation camp. That is a couple of kilometers away to be able to see the sun above them, behind but above the mountain. Now, Will Duffy puts out a video only a few days ago that he made, a time-lapse video that he made when they went back from the observation camp, when they were finished there, and they went back to the base camp where all the tents are, where he made a 36-hour time-lapse of the sun, right? And at no point did the sun go behind the mountain. At no point. It was above the mountain all the time. 36 hours. So the sun makes 2 passes of the mountain within his footage, right? So I thought that the reason that they had to move camp was because the sun goes behind the mountain. And here's Duffy with a 36-hour time lapse from the very place that Jaron Campanella, and this has been common knowledge. No one has disagreed with this. No one said, oh, that's wrong information or anything. Like, it's been brought up many times. Jaron Campanella's audio clip has been played many times. No one on the opposing side, Will Duffy, anyone, they never gave any, opposition to this. It was like that was just the norm. That was supposedly a known fact. And so much so that Jaron Campanella said, when they went back to the base camp after they had finished their day at the observation camp, they went back and supposedly got sleep and a shower and all the rest of it, that he said that when the sun goes behind Mount Rossman for those couple of hours, it's freezing cold. When the sun is out, it's warm, but when the sun goes behind Mount Rossman, it gets really bitter cold. So he's literally referencing the sun doing that while he's there. Yes, while he's there and Will Duffy's with him, Will Duffy is making a 36-hour time lapse of the sun and it's not doing that from the very place, from 100 meters away, 150 meters away from where probably Jaron Campanella's tent was. So you tell me, like, I can't say the whole thing is fake, but one thing I can definitely say is there's a missing shadow and there's a lot of contradiction going on there, double speaking, and things just not making any sense. You know what I mean?
Shenanigans!
Shenanigans is a fair call. Oh, sorry.
I was just calling shenanigans.
Yeah,
shenanigans. Sorry.
Yeah, shenanigans. It's a fair call. That's definitely shenanigans.
Yes, indeed, it is shenanigans. Very interesting.
You know what was funny, Nathan?
I was looking.
Just 1 second, Eli. You know what's funny, Nathan? The video that this guy Petey made. You remember years ago, the ballers would make videos, and you know the way they put the worst part of their argument or the thing they're trying to hide, they put it right out in front, like the newspaper puts the worst part of the headline, it becomes the front page, and then when they go into the story, they don't mention what was the big headline.
Right.
That's this is what the ballers used to do years ago. They'd make a video and they'd put something out there and they just wouldn't mention it, but yet it would be very important to their argument afterwards. This is the first, and I expected this to happen when he said he was going to make a video. That's the first thing this guy did. The very first thing he did was place something in a place and then not mention that. But talk about everything else around it, but no mention of that. No mention of how we put that there, why you put it there, if he had coordinates to put it there or nothing. Just not a mention of it, because he was trying to basically put it in a place that would suit him for the thing he was trying to do. It's like, is this 2016 again? That's what was going through my head. Because it's just like, You know the way everything, and Anthony commented on my video that I made as a response to it today. Anthony said, and I was only thinking it before I read Anthony's comment. Like, if we even got the time wrong, right, or didn't give the time of day when we were making the video, we'd be absolutely crucified. But they can do all kinds of shenanigans and get up to all kinds of stuff, and it's supposed to be okay.
No, I don't think it's. It almost seems manufactured so that people call shenanigans on it, right? Because then that just makes us, that's Flat Earthers, look like completely crazed numpties, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
It's almost like if they intentionally do a bad job, leave the green screen on, be in the wrong location, say it's midnight when it's 3 a.m., all that kind of crap, look like they're vaping, then all you're going to get is Flat Earthers putting up loads of gates to ignore the 24-hour sun, which is exactly what we've seen, right? How many gates are we up to now? You've got to get through Vapegate and Snowgate and Stitchgate and whatever else, just so that you can...
Gate.
Yeah, Shadowgate that you're creating here.
Yeah. See, you know what it is? I know there's something wrong there, right? Now, I've pointed out things that are already much more serious arguments concerning the mounts, the EQ mounts, or the solar mounts they're using. But they're not the type of thing that loads of people would latch onto. You know what I mean? They're the type of thing that you would, when you have a bit of information about it, you'd use that in the debate.
Speaking of which, perfect timing. Unitox Femu says, how do we know the height of that mountain? That's a very good question, Unitox Femu. And when we get down to the bottom of the shadows that we need to be measuring elevation angles on a flat plane for, but when we get to that, obviously we're going to need the standards that were applied to us at the Isle of Man to be adhered to in Antarctica. That means they're going to have to damn well get down there and going to measure it. That's what they'll need if they're going to use it for anything. Now, it seems like the big TV screens they used to present this image in the tent they filmed this in, they didn't include the shadows. I mean, that's what it looks like. I mean, I don't know what else to say, Brian. Being facetious,
one thing is, as well as that, how do you know that when you're looking at that mountain from where that you're looking south?
Well, the TVs, they put up the TVs orientated them south.
Yeah, see, look, this is the thing, right? I am a conspirator. I'm not going to lie. Sorry, One Deck. You want to say something?
Sorry, Brian, you go for it, mate.
All right, thanks. I just say I am a conspirator. I'm not going to lie, right? I am, right? But I like good conspiracy. I don't like nonsense. I like good conspiracy. But to be quite honest with you, there's a lot of stuff with this, and I'm going to say it. I'm leaning a lot more to watching RV Truth than I ever was before. So I'm not going to lie.
What do you mean?
You know what I mean?
Oh, that makes it sound like you went off him. I've always liked RV Truth.
No, but I always stuck to things that were like I've always wanted to hear stuff like QE would put out, or something that's more like an argument I could use in a debate. But now it's more like, I'm starting to lean more towards it. This is just, there's a lot more going on.
Just say it. You think Jared's a Freemason. Just come out with it.
No, I don't know anything about that. I'm just saying that the argument has moved on, and maybe the argument was never about who has the best argument and who is the best geometric proof and all the rest of it. Maybe it's something a little bit different. Just
divide and conquer. That's it, right?
Yeah, well, there is a bit of that, right? Yeah. Come on, sorry, John.
Split us up. Have us all arguing amongst ourselves about Vapegate and Snowgate and Stitchgate and Shadowgate, and the list will go on and on and on, right? And that's Flat Earth Debate, will remain censored. That's to say, we'll be at the bottom of the list so that when people like... Actually, that's not true. By virtue of tune and Red's rhetoric, right, they actually played a good substantial chunk of our argument out to their audience and then hand-waved it. Now, they did that for Cope, but they were explaining, when I was listening back on the QE stream that you took part in, Brian, there are 800 people watching live. So a lot of people got to hear that argument by, vicariously, if that's the correct word. I don't know if that's the correct term. But in either event, they got to hear it through McToon and Red's rhetoric. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to take it on board when they're there for Cope anyway. But my point is that these arguments that I was about to decry as being shoved to the bottoms of the lists or they're at least getting through to people because of the annoyance we cause in other ballers when they do hear the arguments because they're presumably subscribed to us. But the majority of flirfs or normies that do a search on Flat Earth, they're not going to find us. That's what I'm contextually talking about in this regard, right? They're not going to hear the Earth's measured flat arguments. They're not going to hear you shouting at Toon that he's holding up a load of flat Earth measurements. They don't get to see that, do they? They just get to see the anti-flirfs chanting about how... Again, this is where my argument falls down. If they're broadcasting my arguments out to 800 people, I'm going to shut up.
I keep hearing say argument. What argument, valid argument, is being made that we would need to argue against?
Well, there isn't any anymore. Like, seriously, I'm just fobbing you off with that. There isn't any, is there?
But there never was. But, John, the thing is this. It wasn't about good arguments. It was about the confidence and arrogance to be able to, and dishonesty, to be able to wave away good arguments from us and promote rubbish from their own side. Because ever since the TFE thing has happened, just 1 second, ever since that TFE thing has happened, I'm seeing ballers coming out of the woodwork and arguments coming out of the woodwork that were diminished years ago. But yet they're coming forward with this nonsense again, as if it was an argument in the first place. It's like they all have sudden confidence and courage now.
Yeah, I just heard somebody argue gravity for like a half an hour.
Yeah, with what's it, Hank Hill, as he used to go by. Remember him? We were talking about him when we were writing the book the other day. I don't know if you were around when we were having that conversation, Brian. Shout out to Himsake. Great to hear your voice, Brian. Well, I don't know if I'd agree with you there, Himsake.
I agree with that.
His voice can be very nasally.
I
agree with... sorry, John.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying I agree with Brian there. But I think the old trip, I've been out of it for a little bit, but the old trip to me was just like a distraction and to disturb the ripples and get whoever they can who's not on our level to start talking nonsense about lights in the skies and all that. But it's like you say, John, there's no argument, there's no discussion. They've proved nothing except to videoing a light in the sky. So that we don't need to even discuss that. We know that.
100 people watching. Woo-hoo. Please share the show. Thank you for tuning in.
Something ugly arised from all of this. I didn't know that there was such a strong hold of the AE visualization of the Earth on flat earthers.
Oh, yeah.
So for whatever reason, now it's being exposed. And they've been really ugly, you know?
Right.
We should thank them.
That didn't make sense. Hold on. Did I just have a little brain fart? The last sentence was, they're really ugly. Then the following sentence was, we should thank them. Did I just have a little seizure?
We should thank them for what they did because they forced a purge. Now all the shitheads are gone.
No. There needs to be an appearance of an argument. They need to instill doubt in what is known so that they can have an argument. That's all they needed to do. And
yeah. If you can argue about Stitchgate, you can have an overarching idea that there's a globe to be argued about while you're arguing about Stitchgate. You know what I mean? If you're arguing about it being a dome of tellies, then you're arguing about it being a dome of tellies because it could be a ball, but for the fact that you have or haven't proven that there's a dome of tellies there. Yeah? There's a semblance of an argument.
Shadows, I get it, or shadows. But still.
No, I'm not. That wasn't actually a jab at you, Brian, right? The dust settled enough for it to be inconsequential, right? And if I was going to have a jab, I'd have. You've self-flagellated enough over this, so this is not the purpose of this, right? You made an error, and you immediately rescinded what you said. We'd had a conversation, a little bit of a falling out over it beforehand, But it was at a time when I was saying, just don't do anything, watch, just let the dust settle. And you didn't. I'm not saying this as a consequence of me saying that. You know, you're your own man, you'll do whatever you like. But whether or not you were taking heed of me or not, when you got into it, when the dust was in full swing and everywhere and everyone was getting covered in it, you paid dearly. Now we sit back and we look at this stuff objectively. Everyone else has fallen on their swords and made the conspiratard claims and been shown to be wrong and argued about. None of it's relevant, and yeah, that's why you're saying, oh, and the shadows. Well, not really, because what we can unanimously call now, I'm quite confident in doing it, which is why I'm being quite cocky about the Tellys thing, because there is shenanigans, isn't there? Well, it's nice to have one of our own showing that, in spite of me saying don't. I'm sure you're not, paying that much attention. I noticed that on when they were calling us an echo chamber, you like all laughing. I felt quite small while I was listening that back. You basically all saying, yeah, we don't respect Nathan. We'll do whatever the damn well hell we please. It's basically the attitude. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of true. There's lots of alphas on the show who know what they're doing. So I can't control them. What do you want? They're all alphas.
I got to hold my hands up, though, I have to be honest. I couldn't stay away from it. Even now, I'm trying to get myself to stay away from it. And I can't. Because, you know what it is? Because I know they don't have anything. I know they've got nothing, and they have had nothing for 10 years. And they're trying to promote this thing as if it's the be-all and end-all of everything. And they're all coming out of woodwork, all confident again, bringing up arguments from 2016 that were wiped out in 2016. And things that were wiped out years ago. And they're trying to give people turning up like Miles Davis and people like that turning up. It's like, hang on a minute, right? Where are you getting all your confidence from? So I kind of like, maybe it's a sick thing with me, and maybe it'll be my downfall, but I just want to destroy the TFE. Not because I need to do it, because I know the earth is flat. I've known it for 10 years. I have all the evidence of that. There's no problem there. I just want them to feel bad.
The final experiment. This time, it's personal.
TFE is like is like Toguro before Shang Tsung in Mortal Kombat. When you think Toguro is like the big cheese and he's the boss, but it's really worse than that, if that makes sense. Because again, like we're having a big falling out right now with flat earthers that are not understanding.
No, I know what you're talking about. It's a fantastic reference. Like, I always find when something's not quite clear, giving a late 90s video conversion to movie that nobody's ever seen, that doesn't tend to bring real clarity to the situation. Thanks for that.
We're all old, Nathan. You know your demographic. Let's face it.
I happen to have seen that movie, yes. That's why I can take the mickey out of the fact that no one's ever heard of what you're talking about. Mortal Kombat's a video game.
Yeah,
Okay, so,
I was completely lost there, Eli, when you said that. I was like, what is Eli on about?
In video games, you think you're fighting the boss. That would be TFE, and we get to hit some of the Etherites also. So we're like, yay, it's over. No, there's a bigger boss. And that bigger boss is the fallacy of reification. That's what
there's life. There's always a bigger boss. Always. Even when you're uber rich. I remember, I think it was is it Johnson & Johnson, something like that own the baby powder and all of that sort of stuff. It's like a chemical company. Anyway, I once watched a documentary about the grandson of the guy, Mr. Johnson. And he's like, rich beyond your comprehension. What does he spend his time doing? Worrying about whether or not he'll remain as incredibly rich as he is. And on top of that, worrying about whether or not he's got enough incredible wealth to sustain his greedy, selfish, upstart kids and their grandkids, and his grandkids, who are all leeches. And it's all very stressful for him, right? So no matter where this guy goes, no matter how high he gets and how much company growth and billions of dollars that he's got at his disposal, there's still something to friggin' stress about. There's someone else around the corner that wants to take it away from you when he's being interviewed. There's always someone trying to knock you off your perch. There's always someone trying to bring you down from where you are so they can stand there. And you've got to constantly worry about it. So there's always a bigger boss. Now, it's when you reach the contentment of knowing Earth's flat, for this subject specifically, there's a lot more to life and contentment than just this. But obviously this is flat Earth debate. In this regard, once you know how Earth's measured, you can relieve yourself of that. You don't have to worry about the standards of other shitheads. Because that's all you'll have from there on in. Some other asshole telling you how your standards need to be because he has a belief in the ball or she has a belief in the ball. Therefore, you have to reach their standards. Yeah? Actually, I got somebody echoed this sentiment. It was Lewis Rossman talking about Linus Tech Tips and GN, a different videographer making videos on graphics cards. But they've had a spat, and the standard that's being laid down by Linus, a very big YouTuber, Linus Tech Tips, if you don't know who he is, was to lay the standard as the bitch, as the asshole, as the person who's unreasonable. And the guy who is putting these unreasonable standards on, GN, is comporting to them and doing all these asshole standard things that are being foisted upon him, where the guy foisting any of these standards, he's not adhering to any of those standards. It's like, no. Once you realise that you don't have to comport to other assholes and their standards because you know the score, you can be a bit more content in life. It's one aspect of many. I'm sure there's plenty of woes that I definitely wouldn't allow to be talked about on the live stream from many different people. Everybody's got their issues. But I'm just saying, for us here today, now, if you're a listener, how many people are listening? Well over 100. Yeah, if you're amongst those people, you can find contentment in this regard just by knowing that next man's standards are inconsequential to you. So then it becomes, do you know it's flat or not? And then once you answer that, yes, I absolutely know for sure and without a doubt Earth is flat, then the standards of the Earth do actually become less important to you. Yeah, I don't concern myself. I say this often on the show, I just never make such a lengthy example of it. When I'm like, no, I actually don't think about the fundies after the show's finished. That's true. Because it doesn't, their standards that they hold me to are irrelevant to me. I know what the world is. Do I care what your standards are? Oh, I haven't met them. For you. That's your problem. Stop trying to meet the asshole standards, Brian. It's their problem.
Yeah, but there's a factor you're not including. There's a variable there you're not paying attention to. For 10 years, these people have been proven wrong. Outright wrong. No ifs, no buts, no maybes. This thing comes along and you have them all suddenly with their chests out trying to hand wave away those 10 years. That infuriates me.
Well, don't let it.
I want to hurt
don't let it.
special lamb, which is the TFE. I want to hurt it.
Yeah, I got it the first time. The sentiment's clear.
I want to hurt it.
I got it. But just don't let it.
And I have been hurting.
I've got an example, right? Toon is going to be the poster child for this example till the day he dies, unfortunately for him. Why wasn't he content? You're saying that they're puffing their chests out. It's all bravado, isn't it? Toon's puffing his chest out. I have been presented with what he did actually do with regards to other people because we were questioning whether or not he'd spent time on phone calls with others. No, he hadn't. But what he did do was go through Dave Weiss's app and say, look how wrong it is. Oh, look, I haven't turned on location services before now. I'll turn them on now. Yeah, he's taking up that pain, soaking up that pain relief, isn't he? Until he gets to us. And I say us. I know he's calling me. He's calling Flat Earth Debate, though, isn't he? He's not calling me. He's calling us to try and get some more pain relief. And he's got something in his back burner just in case it don't go his way, right? Where are the guns? He's got that little gem in his back pocket, seemingly as a ammunition that's going to be really well served. No. That isn't the case. He didn't know that at the time, but he's got a backup plan. He's ready to go. He's got all the confidence and brave pindles he needs. He's in Antarctica, seemingly looking at the 24-hour sun. And it was utterly inconsequential to us, wasn't it? Didn't matter. What did he get? He got the 100th repetition of about your 10K measurements at a flat tune. And then what happened? Was he bravado, big-chested? Was he any of those things then? Or was he screaming my name into the snow because it drove him nuts?
Yeah, exactly. Like, see, I understand that a lot of this is bravado, but see, they never had anything. Everything they had was made of cardboard and melted plastic. But the thing that bothers me is they think that they can, now that the TFE thing has come out, right? They think that they can now use that to hand wave away 10 years. And yes, Toon, it was obvious that it hadn't done for him what he needed it to do, because if it did, he wouldn't have called you with that manner. He would have been much more calm, because when you're fulfilled, you're calm. Right?
Yes.
But he wasn't calm. He was under pressure, because the measurements they had to get. He understood that those measurements, the things he was trying to show to me in that debate, that they require a flat plane. So and he's watching all these things happening, and he's like, "This is not doing it for me."
Yeah, he should be in total bliss.
Go on.
Yeah, you put it perfectly, right? You're calm when you're at peace because you've won, right? There's the relief, the tension sheds, without being crude and like describing post-coital cigarettes. You get the general idea. There's a sense of calm when you're fulfilled, when you're satisfied. Yeah? He hasn't got that demeanour about him when he's yelling my name into the snow. Why not? Yeah? Because it doesn't prove what he needs it to prove to the extent he needs to prove it. The extent he needs 24-hour sun to prove it is for me to shut your channel, shut your... And it was never going to achieve that. So their stress and pain continues in the same vein as conspiracy cats on the same exact channel, coincidentally. With us just repeating the same thing to them 100 times and not going away. Like, what do you think? You're going to come back the 99th time and I'm not going to ask you about your flat earth measurements? That's never going to change, is it? It's always going to be measured flat.
The only proof Toonstones has got is the same proof that Eratosthenes had, which was measuring an elevation angle using shadows using the surface of Earth.
Well
done, Toonstones.
Yeah, but when they're pointed out as flat earth measurements, shout out to Brian's logic again. What's he got to retort with? Well, his suggestion is to say, look, these aren't measurements. It's a scientific prediction that came true. That's what he's got. He's got to decry the fact that they're measurements. It's pathetic.
So it's even worse than, in his mind, since he doesn't understand the difference between measurement and experiment. It should be even worse if he believes that statement.
Can't get worse than that, surely.
Well, if he thinks it's testable, repeatable, holds true always, then it's flat.
We've seen the outcome now, Brian, right? There's nothing to get annoyed about. We've seen what they've got to offer. You've immediately confronted them, Toon, in this regard, with the flat earth measurements that they've acquired. Now we're saying, where's the rest of them? I want them from the mountain. Hang on a minute, where's the shadows? We're just taking the piss out of them now, Brian.
Well, I would have liked. Now I knew it wasn't going to happen because of the type of thing it was. But what I point out concerning those solar mounts, it's not an attractive thing because you'd have to think about it a little bit. But when you understand it, it destroys them, right? Because what happened when I put out those videos, it drove the ballers up the wall because it took away the TFE. It didn't mean anything because the mounts were proving that the Earth was stationary, right? And all the measurements were proving it's flat, and the mounts themselves prove it's flat because the mounts work off of a flat stationary plane, right? Whether it be solar or equatorial, they all work off of a flat stationary plane. That's how they're designed, right? And they prove it to be, right? Now, because of the argument that it wasn't something that everyone was going to latch onto. People liked it, but they weren't going to latch onto it because it wasn't attractive. It wasn't as simple, if you understand what I mean. But once you understand it, it's a killer, right, argument. But it wasn't attractive, so people weren't going to latch onto it. Now, the thing is that if everyone did latch onto that, onto the mount argument that I put forth, this whole thing would be over and done with already. And the reason it would be is because it wouldn't matter then to the ballers what's going on in the sky over Antarctica, because the globe they need, right, to believe in is gone, right, at that point. But of course, that's not going to happen. Flat earthers are going to, because we're all conspirators. We're going to go looking for things like corners in the sky. And I'm not putting all that down because that's shenanigans, because I'm involved with my shadows. But we're going to go and look for all these other things instead of focusing on the thing that's the real killer. It's kind of like before this happened, if flat earthers had focused on the right things, this wouldn't have even taken place. But they didn't. And what can you do? I can't point fingers because I do the same thing as the rest of them do. Maybe to a slightly, in my opinion, I do it to a better quality, but I still do the same thing. I'm still a conspirator.
Yeah, well, we all are, and you and I personally had a laugh about this on several occasions because it is quite funny. But we self-identify because we know the paths that lead everybody here, and for the most part, other conspirators annoy us because, like you say, I don't see looking at psychopathy or subliminal messaging as being stupid conspiratide path, but it is. You know, I'm sure you're the same with gematria, or you know, when we take the mick out of you going on and on about the number 9. Well, you see that as a serious endeavour. I see looking at pseudoscience psychology as a scientific endeavour. You know, it's a laugh when you actually self-analyse, though, isn't it? We know what we are. And there's going to be people who say, well, I'm not one of those. QE's one of them. But perhaps in terms of how that gets bundled together in terms of his endeavours biblically, maybe that's how he gets bundled in it. They see that as the same path to get a certain type of person, a certain type of extremist.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, you have to say that QE loves drama. You at least have to say that. There's a big part of the reason why he's still involved in this arena, because he loves the drama. He loves the juice, the action. Do you know what I mean? That's why he's involved. Do you know what I mean? Even if he's not an open conspirator, although he is a conspirator, but a well hidden one, he loves the drama. He loves the juice, the action. That's what he's here for. Do you know what I mean? He's not fulfilled. Like, technically, he should be fulfilled with the Black Swan. That should be, 2nd of January, 2020. See you later, QE's gone. No, he's not fulfilled. He wants more. So we all want something out of this. We all have our own personal something that we want out of it. And it's time to admit it. The ballers, a lot of the ballers, they like it. They like being sneaky. They like being
No. I don't. They do it. No. Don't mistake doing something out of necessity for doing it out of enjoyment. They do that out of necessity, not because of pleasure. Got to stop you there.
You're right. I'm wrong. I'm completely wrong. Sorry, John.
I don't get anything from arguing with ballers. I'm generally just hanging out with you guys.
But you like arguing with us.
Yeah, but have we ever argued whether it's a sphere or not? No, but the point is, you like it too. You like the drama. You like the drama. Yeah,
you like the. Yeah.
I mean, you say we've never argued about the sphere. I mean, it is possibly the best model to explain things, like Jaron says, right?
The celestial sphere diagram, is that the one he was talking about?
No, the reified geometric physically spherical Earth that, we're definitely standing on. That's the best way of explaining it.
The one that doesn't give you elevation angles?
Yeah, you can get those with tangents. I'm just going by what Jaron's told me. All hail Jaron.
Yeah, well, at the end, again, the diagnosis of the problem, the root cause, is logically fallacious thinking. In this case, reification. I think we came out the gate so strong with calling people out with fallacies that they either become numb or just like they dismiss it like it's not of any consequence. It's not just the reason you're wrong here, it's the reason that your life's probably upside down because you don't know how to think straight.
Not of any consequence. We're going to have to go through what the difference between consequent and consequence. Yeah? As in affirming the consequent and the consequences of doing something.
What did I just say?
Consequent.
And what was the sentence?
I don't know the sentence. I was making a thumbnail.
Okay. Give a Mortal Kombat analogy, and everyone.
That's what we need. Better
I would
use
not have
Street
said
Fighter.
consequence
Kylie Minogue.
in the face of consequence.
In any event, yeah, I've got my nice out of the woodwork thumbnail done now, which is more important.
It's inconsequential anyway.
It wasn't inconsequent. That's right.
Well, as long as we ain't affirming the coincidence, we're all right.
Affirming the consequence. Sorry.
I said affirming the coincidence.
I know, I just made it even more ridiculous.
Oh, well, it's been fun. How long we got left on the live stream? Oh, we still got 10 minutes left. I was about to run out. I got slightly distracted making my thumbnail. But yeah, the whole TFE thing is now inconsequential to us, and our opponents know that it's inconsequential to us, even if they tried to dodge us going through the affirming the consequent fallacy that is utilised with TFE. Now they're dipping their toe in to see, well, what's their reaction? And they just hear us what we've been repeating the same for, 8, 9, 10, 12 months? But they might be hearing it for the first time. It doesn't matter, does it?
But why is it inconsequential? Because it's never inconsequential to what you don't know. It's when you know something that all other assertions are meaningless that are contrary to that, right?
Okay, say that again.
If I know something is true, that it is a fact, it doesn't matter what anyone says to me. If I know that is true, I don't have to bother myself with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. When I woke up on the day of TFE, I didn't actually know it was TFE, but then the first thing I'm presented is, look, it's green screen. I'm like, oh, it's TFE today. Now, by pure coincidence, my wife was off out with the kids. I'm like, you telling me I've got free reign of the place and TFE's on? I'm like, awesome. I better start sowing some seeds. This is while I was drinking my coffee at 6 a.m. with my wife. So I'm like, what can I take a video of? And I look out the window and the sun's just coming up. I'm like, I'll film that and then say there isn't a sun and that it's green screen. Just start poking. In other words, I don't care. It don't matter what I say at this point. It's inconsequential to me. You know, nothing that happens over the course of that day, right, or nothing, past tense, nothing that happened over the course of that day was going to have any bearing on us. So we could look at it completely objectively, couldn't we? So we just had a laugh.
Right. But what is it that you know that makes it inconsequential?
Earth's measured flat. I knew they'd come back with flat Earth measurements. After the fact, I've poked fun at them because they've now decided to turn it into some sort of science experiment, like formulate it, like try and officially formulate it rather than just calling it an experiment. And while they're doing that, you're like, okay, I predicted that they'd measure Earth flat when they went down there. And they did! Science! Earth scientifically valid to be flat by their standards. Oh, by the way, did they get all this through peer review?
I think nowadays, though, just going back to that knowing the truth, what John was saying, and at one point in my path, I was very forceful in wanting to tell people that the Earth was flat and that's how it's measured. I'm not so much like that with people now, but still knowing the truth, I do feel like sometimes you want to share that truth, don't you? You want to let other people know, that if you also notice this and realize this, the fulfillment you'll get of knowing that you've discovered the lie and now you know the truth. I think a lot of us, that's what we want to do, isn't it? Tell the people the truth.
Nah, I just like making YouTube videos, if I'm honest. I mean, take it or leave it is my attitude, though. I'd love to agree with you, but I don't sit here and worry that the audience aren't going to understand the truth. It was a bit like that, again, back to the writing of the book. There were certain points while we were writing it where we're all discussing how some of it's quite heavy going. And the kind of conclusion is, yeah, it is. If you can't cope with that, tough luck. It's like some of it's not a light going subject. But in the process of trying to just get that out to the audience, as long as I achieved getting it out, do with that as you will. You know, take the information or leave it. Argue with it. Well, that's my show. But I don't care. So that might offend some people. They're like, what, you're not deeply concerned with whether or not I know the truth? Well, no. I'm sorry.
You know, in a way, your show's name is almost like a housekeeping question unto itself, because the existence of something in the physical world is not up for debate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it could be called
like,
Flat Earth Debate question mark, couldn't it?
Yeah, it's like, you know, you kind of stepped into it when you thought you had a debate, that there was a debate to be had about it. You know what I mean?
Well, while I won't change the show title, I decree from this day forth, anybody who announces the title of this show should say it with an upward inflection. So it's not Flat Earth Debate anymore. It's Flat Earth Debate?
Like it's a question.
For anyone joining us late, if you're a member, check out the pre-show. There's not going to be a very, very long after show because I'm coming down with illness. I've got a high temperature, so I'm going to round out relatively soon after the live show ends. But if you are a member, we popped into politics because there was absolutely nobody in Flat Earth Debate or indeed in Earth Awakenings. So in spite of us being banned from there, or seemingly banned from there last time I tried to go in on Monday, that isn't the case anymore, which is nice to know, if nothing else. So at the time I was like, sod them! They will never have my presence again. Well, you know, I'm very fickle. So the minute my server, or my most regular server, it's not mine, was empty, I was straight in there. Let's see if there's anybody in there. I'm so fickle. Right, any other pressing business as we've got 121 people watching live? Any word on Shadowgate, in all sincerity, Brian?
Well, I pointed out a few things now today in a video, Nathan, and it's so convoluted at this stage. It's after turning into more than Shadowgate. It's like things that were said are now turning out to not be true, and you know what I mean. It's becoming just a real mess altogether at this stage. You know, I don't know what to say about it anymore. I really don't know what to say. All I can say is shenanigans. It's definite shenanigans going on there somewhere. I suppose it's only a matter of time before. I mean, someone always gives the game away, don't they? They always say, "I was part of that, and what they did was this thing," or something. You know,
maybe
if something happened, if there was something. Go on.
Well, I speculated with QE and he'll after me at the time that there are intentional shenanigans, but the event might be legitimate. That's to say, I put this speculatively to an opponent the other day. I said, what if I was to accept that there is a 24-hour sun and simultaneously it was all faked? Yeah? What would you do then? I think it was Dicelo or someone like that. It was someone from our own side I was putting this to try and eke out of them what their actual objection was. Was it the AE map? Was it the 24-hour sun? Was it the shenanigans? It's like, well, if I accept that there is a 24-hour sun and the shenanigans, what are you going to do then? Yeah? Because it just seems like there's an intent to make people call out things that aren't quite right. Now, that could be me being a conspiratard, reading too much into it, and I can almost hear QE's words ringing in my ears. No, it's just amateur night. They're all idiots. That's all this is.
Look, I don't know what's going on. All I know is that there is supposed to be a sun going behind a mountain that isn't going behind a mountain, and there's supposed to be a shadow that isn't there. Shadow there that isn't there. That's all I know. Right? At this stage, it's ridiculous. But you could be right. See, you could be completely right, right? And I thought of that too, right? That it could all be a heap of nonsense and shenanigans, but that doesn't mean that it's not real. Right?
Here's my story.
Or there isn't really
right.
one.
This is my story. This is what happened. I just shouldn't be laughing while I'm saying it. Hold on. Let's just get a grip so I'll be taken seriously. Shout out to Robert for joining as a penguin. So this is what they did, right? They sent someone down last year and filmed the 24-hour sun. They then went down 4 months ago because it took a very long time to set up essentially a giant Truman Show style dome with TVs in it. Then they flew them into Antarctica so they could get it on their camera phones, but then drugged them when they arrived, put them into the dome, and let them all just wake up and, you know, hope that they didn't have any recollection of that. A bit hazy. They all set up their materials and their equipment, leveled it to a plane, and started filming what was essentially a real 24-hour sun, but was fake for them that they just didn't know it. Bit like in Space Cadets, like on Channel 5. So a bit like that.
I feel horrible that you have even shared that with me.
That's legit because I made that up myself. How dare you? What are you talking about? I made that up myself during this live show. I can't believe you could condemn it as being nonsense that I've just made up when I just made it up.
Well, did you know that birds aren't real either?
Yeah, you just film them the like previous 12 months earlier, and then they appear on the tellies in the dome, so they look very real. They could have hatches as well. They could launch domes in through the hatches.
The birds aren't real thing is a dig at conspiracy theories, saying conspiracy theorists are that ridiculous they think birds aren't real. But it's set up by the survivors of some shooting. It's just some political bullshit.
If you want CGI Osprey, man, I can find you that.
But the reason people laugh at it, and it is a dig, is because we know birds are real. We experience them every day. It's a joke to say they're not real, right?
It's whether or not orangutans are real that I'm really questioning.
Hold on. But the funny thing is when you bring up the globe, right? That's why it's such a great comparison. Level's not flat. You know, like you can almost laugh at them at that point.
What about panda bears? I mean, do you really think panda bears are real?
It's got to be a conspiracy.
Not conspiracy, it's just some dude. It's just some well-trained... I did performing arts. You know, it's where being a panda, very well paid. But, you know, it takes an artist.
They do exist, but they're just too big. You can't see them.
There is a guy online who has a conspiracy that sharks aren't real. Like great white sharks.
I can believe that.
He thinks they're all made up.
Same with pelicans. I mean, that beak is just a joke. Someone's glued that on.
Right. But I mean, the only reason I bring it up is because it's such a joke, right? And that's what the globe has become to us.
Have you ever seen a toucan? Like, really actually seen a toucan?
Yes.
Seen one can.
See, nobody's saying yes. See, toucans, they don't really exist.
Just said yes. No, I've seen one in an aviary.
And somebody glued it. That's just not real. They fake them just to keep the idea of them alive, so that gullible people like you can see them in cages from a distance and think, yeah, that's real. I saw a CGI video of one being fed once.
Right, so that fruit. What is that breakfast cereal? They can keep making it.
Tricks.
They need to keep that breakfast cereal going.
Tricks. We don't even have it in this country, but I know what you're talking about.
Well, it's Fruit Loops, not Tricks.
Oh, is it Fruit Loops? God damn. It's Fruit Loops. Yes, you're right. There's me being cocky. Very important stuff we're dealing with here live on Flat Earth Debate. We are just mocking the idea of the conspiratard approach to TFE. That's all we're really doing. But we probably overstepped the line 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. Well, as an American, I take my neon breakfast cereal very seriously.
Don't you have bacon with pancakes?
Yeah.
I just want to throw it out there. There is the possibility.
That tastes like that.
A good breakfast discussion, very important, Brian. Go ahead, Brian.
Oh, me? Is it?
The other Brian. There's 17 of them.
Okay, I'll go then. There is the possibility that all of these people are in on the joke, right? And we're the butt of the joke.
Maybe. I think the truth lies somewhere in between, which is there's a comedy of errors with mistakes being made by amateurs who probably are capturing a 24-hour sun. Now, whether or not that occurs every year or not, I don't know. I've been led to believe, potentially by someone who just lied to me, that there wasn't one 24-hour sun. Now that there is, okay, there is. So what? But whether or not the flatties that get behind Stitchgate and Vapegate and just don't actually ever talk about the 24-hour sun itself, they can't dare even mention it. It just makes them look like tards. A lot of them are actually denying it. They're like, you don't have to deny this, right? You can take it or leave it, you know? We're living in an age where, yes, it is very easy to fake things. That doesn't mean everything's fake. You don't have to auto-hoax it just because it's coming from a source that you don't like. And in this case, it's a source that they do like, if in the form of Jaren, just bear with me. And that's making everybody look culty when they all turn against him. Again, maybe that's intentional. Who knows? But it does make us all look like very culty people when we turn on Jaren, if he's perceived to be our leader. That's how it's all been staged, and that's how it's unfolded. Now we can say all these things after the fact, because they are facts now. That is how it's unfolded. But, okay, so there is a 24-hour sun. Ooh, and? What's that? Antipodal assumption? No. What's that? Azimuthal equidistant projection? No. What difference does it make to us? None. Now, there's a few people that really, really want it to be consequential to me personally for some reason, to the point where they'll dig through my back catalogue to the tune of 8 years to find me discussing this very subject of a 24-hour sun with someone telling me there isn't one, and then me saying, right, well, there isn't one. And them going, look, he said there wasn't one. You're like, okay, well, if you want to dig that far for cope, fine. But I haven't spent 8 years praising at the altar of azimuthal equidistant projections because I believe there isn't a 24-hour sun, or is. It's inconsequential. The first-hand testimony had led me to believe that there wasn't one. And why wouldn't I if someone's telling me that there isn't based on first-hand testimony? Now, if that's shown to be wrong, that is to say, today there isn't one, my first-hand testimony from a person that went there said there was, then something just seems awry. Now, we're calling shenanigans with shadows, but there's definitely shenanigans in terms of what could be a comedy of errors from incompetent idiots, probably more likely than not, or a grand conspiracy of TV tents and drugged participants and, you know, the greatest forgery of all time in a Truman Show style TV tent. One extreme isn't necessarily going to be anything like the truth, and neither's the other. What we know is Earth's measured flat regardless of what they're showing us in Antarctica. If there was a 24-hour sun, and had always been, then I've got to question somebody who I interviewed in terms of their credibility. That's about the only consequence for me. All right, well, is Robert lying? Last time I did that, AI joined the show and said, well, but for retroactive continuity, you can't automatically assume that he's lying. You can't assume just because when he didn't see one, that didn't mean that there should have been but wasn't and he's lying about it, or there was one and he said that there wasn't when he actually did observe it. Either way, it's still inconsequential to us, hence my name being screamed into the snow, rather than a complete contentment. They should be, metaphorically, post-coital cigarette, basking in the midnight sun. And are they? No. Because Earth's measured flat regardless of what they do in Antarctica. Their observation's interesting. I'll give them that.
You know what's funny is the question still exists. Is there a 24-hour sun in Antarctica? Because the people that are involved in this whole thing are so untrustworthy. Jerome Campanella, Will Duffy, you know, McTeown, Whitsitt, whoever else, right? They're so untrustworthy, and there's so many holes to this whole thing that people are still asking, is there a 24-hour sun in Antarctica?
Yeah, which keeps, so that's what John was saying earlier. John was saying this keeps the perception of a debate alive, doesn't it? So if we can then say, well, there's enough ambiguity in this footage to have a question on the table of whether there is or isn't, nobody ever gets to the point that we're at where we say, accept it, just accept it. Well, I don't want to because it means I can't accept my azimuthal equidistant projection. Well, then you've got something like a boat anchor tying you down. You don't need that boat anchor. Just accept it and then ask them, then what, when you accept it. But if you put all these gates up, there's a perceived debate about whether there is or isn't a 24-hour sun. Now, if you just accept it and just go, okay, at face value, based on what you're showing me, And for the sake of this discussion, I'll accept it. Fine. There is a 24-hour sun. Now what, claimant? What are you going to do with it? You, not me. I'm not using this. What do I have to say about it? Very interesting. Very interesting indeed. What of it? But if we're never saying what of it, and we're only going, well, maybe there isn't, because the azimuthal equidistant projection would still be true, the Gleasons would still reign supreme. We gave up on that dream in 2016. Again, people need to go back through my back catalogue and start holding me to those straw men that we investigated when I still had hair. Fine. You do whatever you need to do for cope. Back to me and my contentment. I don't care what you do. If you need me to be saying there was an azimuthal equidistant projection that is the map and model of the world, and it's been debunked by the 24-hour sun in Antarctica, therefore shut your channel, shut your... Well, you can believe that all you like. It doesn't change anything for me. And Earth's still measured flat for everybody who's listening to this show, and affirming the consequence still going to be the fallacy employed to suggest that you're travelling down to the bottom of a ball by automatic assumption, aka begging the question. All of those things have been summarised 100 times since this suggestion of a consequential endeavour in the form of TFE was ever suggested. Doesn't make any difference.
Right.
And you'll still be using that 24 hours. Sorry, mate.
No, you go ahead.
Go on, John. You're right. I was just saying, if there was a 24-hour sun, you're still going to be using that sun for elevation angles, and you will be using, when using the Mariner sextant, sea level for the horizontal reference frame for that elevation angle, with distances of horizontal baseline up to 5,400 miles, possibly, for the radius.
Exactly.
Of that circle of equal altitude.
Or to put it another way, the minute you present some measurements from TFE, it's all going to be measured flat. Go on, John.
Well, I was just getting ready to say, could you imagine if the emperor's new clothes had the little boy come out and say the emperor was naked, and somebody brought up an argument about the magical properties of the clothing he was wearing to him?
That's what they did do. Yeah. I mean, in reality, no.
Well, no, that's what they did to the king. That's what they did to the emperor. They fooled the emperor that these clothes existed. They're just invisible to stupid people. Stupid people can't see it. Like they sold them on a story, like an AE map. Yep. So now they're trying to give justifications.
Yeah.
Well, what if the sun set the day after they left?
But my point with you, John, was more... So just one sec, we'll come back to that. Was that there's a semblance of a debate if we can still have it be ambiguous whether or not there's a 24-hour sun. In other words, people on the flat Earth side's reluctance to just accept it. Now, I try and position this in a way that makes it more palatable to the audience, which is say, I can accept it at face value, and then in the next breath say, I can accept that it's all fake in a TV tent, studio, whatever you want to claim. Okay, I'll accept that for the sake of this discussion. I'll accept that there is a 24-hour sun based on the footage. I'm not going to get into, look, there's a myriad of ways of faking this. Who cares? Yeah, okay, there is. Yeah, great. I'll accept your footage. Now what is the point? Because that reaches the point where, well, what are we actually going to get of this information is going to be flat Earth measurements that Wandek just pointed out. So we're still going to be measuring Earth flat then. Okay? That's never going to put me back on a ball, is it?
Yeah. Well, no. But again, people's problem is, the question is, well, what do we reify it into now? Like, if they never stop doing that, they're not going to just accept, oh, well, it's measured flat.
Yeah, they want a shape. It's like, no, it's not a shape. There is no shape ascribable to the plane that we dwell atop. It's a plane. Measured as such, it's an aspect of the reality that we are inhabiting. One of the realities that is a plane. That's it. What do you mean, shape? It bugs me. I had a couple of... I don't want to mention them, won't dignify. Maybe they'll be listening to this. Right? Some of the middle-of-the-road wave flirfs and die-hard anti-flat earths that were talking about being shape agnostic. And you're like, shape agnostic? There's no shape question in this discussion. Earth is measured as a plane. That's an aspect, not a shape. The fact that people can take the aspect we measure, that's fundamental to measuring Earth and then turn it into a shape means that you should say, well, I don't know if I want to ascribe a shape. So you can take the flat Earth measurements and mathematically turn it into any freaking shape you like. But when you get back to the base measurements, you don't say, well, because that one should turn out to be true. Just look at the measurements. Think about the shape that you can turn those measurements into. Spherical being one of them.
Do with kitchens, can't you, John?
Yes, my kitchen is a sphere.
Shout out to Neil Consento. The audience loves you, brother, says Flat Earth Travolta from the Super Chat.
You know, the only thing I had to do in my kitchen, though, was establish a horizontal baseline to get angles to the ceiling fan, and I was able to calculate that radius.
So as long as you had a flat plane of reference to start measuring things with, you were golden, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're going to need a flat Earth for that. All roads lead to a flat Earth. Any last comments before I ask everyone to stay tuned? Oh. I'll say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Primary Extremes, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Fortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels, as we did go into politics in the pre-show, for making today's live show possible. No, that doesn't make any sense. Also, of course, a massive thank you to all of you for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, hitting the super chat, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.